Now to the North Bay, where neighbors in Santa Rosa have noticed a strange side effect from last week's earthquake, a surge in water flowing right through a popular creek. KRON 4's Charles Clifford has the details.
Well, here in Santa Rosa, there are quite a few people who live along Mark West Creek, and many of them noticed after last week's earthquake that the water level in the creek had suddenly risen.
Boy, we were jolted. Both Susie and I were upstairs.
Last Tuesday, John McCauley and his wife Susie were at home here along Carriage Lane in Santa Rosa when a magnitude 4.4 earthquake struck not far away.
And everything shook in the house, and it opened drawers, it knocked pictures off of walls.
After the quake, John looked out the window and saw a wave of water rushing down nearby Mark West Creek. For months, the creek had been little more than a series of stagnant pools, but now the water had suddenly risen 4 to 6 inches.
We looked at it, and it looked like there was a wave of water coming down the stream.
Wow.
And it was as if you were at the seashore and you watch the wave break and the wave washes up on it, and each successive wave kind of washes up further and closer as the tide is coming in. That's what I would liken it to.
John says that he emailed and called the county and Sonoma Water and has been told that the most likely explanation for the surge is that the earthquake released some underground spring of water somewhere upstream. Thankfully, the water in the creek has leveled off. John and Susie lost their home a few years ago to the Tubbs fire, and Mark West Creek can sometimes flood, so they are grateful that this didn't turn into a problem.
Nice that it has, tapered off.
Now, John and Susie tell me that since the water level has come up, they've seen a surge in steelhead trout fry, little fish. They've also seen a couple of river otters down there playing in the water, and they've seen a fox family show up as well. But for now, in the North Bay, Charles Clifford, KRON 4 News.
Strong earthquake, look.
Shaking felt across the Bay Area this afternoon as a swarm of earthquakes hits near the Sierra. Aftershocks still being felt at this hour. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm Vicki Liviakis.
And I'm Catherine Heenan in for Grant Lotus tonight. We felt the shaking in the studio and the newsroom about 3:50 this afternoon while we were on the air. The first earthquake was a 5.9 south of Lake Tahoe near Nevada. The USGS, by the way, is going to hold a news conference which could happen just about any time. We will bring that to you live when it begins.
Okay, so here's a look at how widely the earthquake was felt. You could see all across the Bay Area, people reported feeling shaking, rolling. We received calls from viewers in the North Bay, the East Bay, South Bay, saying that they felt it too. So here's a look at all the aftershocks indicated by the red dots here. You can see at least 13 registered so far. A 4.2, 3.7, 3.5 hit just minutes later in Markleeville.
And Chief Meteorologist Lawrence Carno. Lawrence, you've been tracking these. Just the fact that there's this many in this swarm in a concentrated area is a little troubling.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. You know, we're on that boundary between the North American and the Pacific Plate. Apparently, there's been a little bit of a shift, and that's why we're seeing numerous earthquakes out there. And, of course, this all started this afternoon. You felt that shaking out there. Maybe you felt a little dizzy, and you thought, what was it? Well, that was an earthquake. We had that first one near Farmington, and that one coming in at 4.8. Now, that's somewhat interesting because at the same time, we were rocking and rolling up in the Sierra Nevada, and it all happened within a minute of each other. So that depth on that one, 4.5 miles, and then we were really shaking up in the Sierra Nevada. And look at that. I mean, it is really going up there right now. We saw the magnitude 5.9. That's south of Topaz Lake, and then we had a magnitude 4.8, 4 miles south-southwest of Lee Vining. So all the way up and down, really, the Sierra Nevada, you can see that right all the way down 395, very active. And if you've driven along this area, you notice that there's some volcanic areas up there. And certainly along that zone, we've seen an increase in some activity all the way down to parts of Southern California. Last year, we had that activity as well. We saw some major earthquakes out toward the desert. So here's the very latest here, and you can see all these earthquakes that have been picking up over just the past couple of hour and a half or so, but continuing along this line all the way down into Mammoth Lakes. You can see that area had some earthquakes just a little little over an hour ago. So this was not just located in one spot. This is across a good part of the Sierra Nevada, a little further to the north, near Lee Vining. We had that earthquake pick up, and some of these quakes, they were fairly strong. This one near Lee Vining was a significant quake. That one at 4.8 at 350. Then just to the west of that, you had some minor quakes, but also those occurring near the same time. Now, as we move further north, that's where we have the larger earthquake, but all along this area, if you've driven past there, you have actually maybe seen some of those volcano mounts up there. Kind of interesting, maybe something moving underneath the ground, maybe some magma moving. We just don't know yet, but numerous quakes in and around this area. And boy, they have just been one after the other. I was talking to Catherine and Vicki, and I've got at least 20 aftershocks that have taken place since that significant earthquake first kicked in, and then now they continue to rumble. So we are far from done with this. We just had, just 2 minutes ago, we just had another earthquake of 4.0. I'm reading that right now, 4.0. Near Colville, California. So that's in that same location. So it is not settled yet. We've got a ways to go before things are going to settle down here. So this could go on for some time, not just the next couple of hours. This could go on for a few days before everything begins to settle down, as that earth begins to settle down in that area, guys. But we're going to be tracking it all night long. Looks like we've got a ways to go before we're done with this one, guys. Back to you.
All right, Lawrence, we'll be talking to you. And we are standing by again for the news conference from the USGS. We will bring it to you live when it begins. And right now on KRON4.com, we have a section dedicated to earthquakes, specifically today's swarm of quakes throughout the Sierra and early morning quakes in the North Bay. And there's information on the USGS Shake Alert app and a lot of advice on earthquake preparedness.
Let's get to our breaking news this morning. A 6.4 earthquake that struck parts of Northern California this morning.
Yeah, thousands of people are still without power this morning, James. And KRON4's Sarah Stinson, she's been tracking that this morning. What are your other updates here? What are you learning?
Yeah, people got jolted awake from the 6.4 magnitude earthquake in parts of Northern California. It was even felt by people right here in the Bay Area. Some got the shake alert on their phones, but didn't feel it. Now let's take a look at where it struck in Humboldt County around 2:30 this morning. You can see the big orange dot. That's the epicenter on the coast just south of Eureka. All the little dots are where aftershocks are felt or were felt. The earthquake happened near Ferndale. No injuries have been reported so far. A tsunami is not expected. And take a look. The Fern Bridge has been closed. It's being inspected for the damage you see on your screen. This is the main bridge over the Eel River that allows people in and out of Ferndale. The Humboldt County Sheriff says there's widespread damages reported to roads and homes, and we actually have video of someone shot of the damage from their Ferndale home. Look right there. Things got knocked all around, made a huge mess. Residents are being told to prepare for more aftershocks, check gas and water lines for damage and leaks. It was a big one. You can see where on this map it was felt around the Bay Area. Ferndale's a small city, about 213 miles northwest of San Francisco. And nearly 70,000 PG&E customers are without power this morning due to the earthquake, and this is the outage map. The red triangles and the orange squares, that's where the largest outages are being reported. PG&E crews are responding to gas and electric hazards. They're checking equipment to minimize outages. This earthquake comes just days after a small 3.6 earthquake hit the Bay Area. That was early Saturday morning, another one that woke people up and caused some minor damage. Now, we're trying to confirm more details about what's going up there in Humboldt County, damage reported, the outages. So we'll have another report for you in about 30 minutes from now. Back to you.
All right, Sarah, thanks for that update.
Turning now to a story.
Yeah, so I'm in San Bruno right now. This is where I live, and I was at home doing some work just a short time ago, and I started to feel kind of an earthquake, just like a small one, and then there was a pause, and then it came back, and it was probably shaking for 10 seconds or so, and it wasn't dramatic shaking. It wasn't like I've felt earthquakes at home that were like the house really shook around. This was almost like literally like more of a stir, like the ground was just sort of stirring is the best word I can come up for it. And it lasted about 10 seconds. And usually, you know, when you get those quakes that last longer than just an initial hit, you know somewhere it's probably bigger and more powerful. And we're sort of seeing now that it hit down in Santa Clara County, as Rudy was saying. And I was just looking at the USGS map. They have a kind of a latest earthquake map that shows where these things happen. And it kind of looks like, from what I can tell, and this isn't official, but it kind of looks like it hit either on or very close to the Hayward Fault, which of course is the fault line that they really worry about here in California around the Bay Area for possibly one day being the, the source of a very big earthquake. So whenever there's an earthquake on that fault, they keep a close eye on those. I did not feel there was some mention of sort of an aftershock later on. I did not feel that. I only felt the initial earthquake, and you could tell that when it goes past 10 seconds or so, that it's really something you got to kind of keep an eye on. Went onto social media, and it looks like a lot of people felt it, not just me.
Definitely. Most of us here in the newsroom, like I said, aside from Kyla, most of us here in the newsroom did end up feeling that. Charles, thank you. We do want to get to Richard Allen. He's the director of the Berkeley Seismology Lab, joining us over the phone now. Richard, this is a pretty big earthquake, 5.1.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is a pretty big earthquake, and of course it was just south of the Bay Area, so clearly many people across the Bay Area felt it. Also, I'm very pleased to be able to report that the earthquake early warning system successfully sent out a warning across the Bay Area as well. I'm getting lots of messages, actually, from people who got the alert and then actually felt the shaking. So in terms of getting a warning out to people so they could sort of protect themselves before they felt the shaking, it looks like we did a pretty good job.
Well, definitely. For me, I actually didn't get an alert personally, but I do believe some in our newsroom did. And everyone kind of started speaking about it, and it took me a second to realize that my that my desk was kind of swaying. As one of our reporters was just saying, it did feel more of a stir than a jolt. Can you explain a little bit why that happens, why sometimes they feel different?
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends about which part of the earthquake shaking you're feeling. I'm assuming you're in downtown San Francisco.
Yes.
Maybe you said that. I'm sorry. So you're a little bit away, right? So this earthquake was just south of San Jose, or just sort of east of San Jose. And so in San Francisco, you obviously felt the shaking. But because you're a little bit further away, you probably didn't feel the first arriving P wave. You probably felt the slightly later arriving S wave, which is also the strongest shaking. And so if you're close to the epicenter of an earthquake, you feel that thump, which is a P wave arriving at your location. If you're further away, you're just feeling the sort of more of a sway, which is the S wave, more of a horizontal motion. So I think that's probably what you were experiencing.
Definitely. Talk to me just about the location that this hit, which fault line it may have hit on?
Sure. It looks to me like it's most likely it was on the Calaveras Fault. It's just immediately east of where the Hayward Fault, so it's where the two faults, the Hayward Fault and the Calaveras Fault, separate, just a little bit north of that point. And so it looks like it was probably on the Calaveras Fault rather than on the Hayward Fault.
Is that a pretty active fault line? Can you tell me when the last time was that we had one this big? Because I do feel like in recent months, probably in the last year, I don't think we've had a 5.1 magnitude quake in this region in any recent memory of mine. When was the last time we had a large earthquake on this fault?
So on the Calaveras specifically, I am actually not sure either. It is an active fault, so when we think about the likelihood of major damaging earthquakes on the faults in the Bay Area, the San Andreas fault is sort of estimated at about 20-25% likelihood. The Hayward fault is about 1/3, so about 33% likelihood, and the Calaveras fault is down at about 25%. So it's definitely one of the more active faults in the Bay Area. And as to exactly when the last bigger sort of magnitude 5 earthquake on that fault was, I actually couldn't tell you off the top of my head. But just to comment, magnitude 5, obviously a lot of people felt this across the Bay Area, but this is not a big earthquake. This is really a very moderate-sized earthquake, and so it's sort of a good reminder for people that this isn't the big one. This isn't a big one even, but this is a reminder that we need to be ready because we do expect to have larger earthquakes that will do damage in the future.
Big ones, what would you classify a big one? Magnitude 6 and above?
Yeah, right, exactly. A magnitude 7 is the kind of earthquake that we need to be thinking about. The Loma Prieta earthquake back in 1989 was the last earthquake that was on that kind of scale. The Napa earthquake we had more recently, of course, back in 2014, that was a magnitude 6. Did a lot of damage in Napa, but really didn't do any damage beyond Napa itself. It's the magnitude 7 earthquakes that we know are coming that are going to do damage across much of the Bay Area. So again, to me, this is a little reminder. It's a sort of jolt to think about what we're going to do when we have these more damaging earthquakes.
Definitely remind folks what to do in an earthquake. I mean, this one, again, like you said, it's not as large, but that magnitude of 5.1, I feel like we normally see about a 3.2, 3.4s, that sort of thing. Remind folks what to do. Obviously, we just had the great shakeout I believe that was last week, right? So it was a great reminder then. So just remind folks again what to do in an earthquake and what we need to do to prepare ourselves.
Absolutely. So whether you feel shaking or when you get an earthquake early warning, you get a message that it's coming, it's very simple. You drop, cover, and hold on. We know from past earthquakes that more than half of the injuries in these earthquakes are because people either fall over or something falls on you, like a book on a bookcase or a bookcase falls over. So that's why when you feel shaking or you get a warning, you drop, cover, and hold on. Very straightforward. In terms of preparedness, for me, that's what we should really take away from this event, is that, we get a warning, we should think about, now if there was a damaging earthquake, we would need to find our kids, we would need to meet up with family members, we would need to have a preparedness kit so that we can get home, first of all. When we get home, we need to have water for a few days, we need to have food for a few days, and think about how we're going to bring all of our family members together and where we're going to hang out for a few days while we wait for things to calm down. So that's the preparedness piece, is thinking about your family plan for a few days after a big earthquake.
Definitely, and this is the reminder we all needed. Richard Allen, director of the Berkeley Seismology Lab, thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad to know you are safe there. We do want to get back to Charles Clifford, joining us live again from San Mateo, a lot closer than here in San Francisco, but it seems we all kind of felt a similar thing. Charles?
Yeah, I've been texting with some of my friends sort of around the Bay Area. People in San Francisco obviously felt it. My wife felt it. People down in the South Bay felt it. Here in San Bruno, there was sort of initially a bit of a shaking, and I thought, well, maybe that's it. And then there was a pause, and then there was a 10-second, a much stronger earthquake. But again, it wasn't like the jolting, house-shaking earthquake that we've experienced in the past. This was like 10 seconds of stirring where there was kind of the ground was sort of doing this motion, and then it faded away. I did not feel the aftershock that a lot of people have talked about after that initial hit, but it was a very solid earthquake. And a lot of times when I feel an earthquake here and there's some light shaking, more than likely it's much bigger further away, and that was the case here. It's interesting to hear that this was on the Calaveras fault, not the Hayward fault. I don't know if that's good news. Certainly the Calaveras, the Hayward, there's a relationship there, and any big quake on those faults is of concern. But it sounds like maybe this was not, maybe it was very deep in the ground. It was strong, but it was deep in the ground, and it didn't cause a lot of damage or a lot of dramatic shaking up on the surface. We'll have to kind of wait and see how this plays out over the next hour or so.
Definitely. Chuck, thank you so much. I do want to note before we get to the next poster we're waiting on is Santa Clara Mayor Lisa Gilmore, but I just wanted to make sure folks know that BART trains, Caltrains, and VTA, they're all working at reduced speeds right now following this earthquake. So if you are headed out of the house right now to try and get somewhere, just know that our public transportation is working at reduced speeds for BART, Caltrains, and VTA. I do believe I'm joined now over the phone by Mayor Lisa Gilmore of Santa Clara. Mayor, can you tell me, is there any reports of damage in your city?
Good morning, James and Daria, to you both. We just spoke with the San Francisco Fire Department. They say there are no reports of any damages within the city from this earthquake. I can tell you that we have not felt that aftershock that you just mentioned here a few minutes ago, but folks are saying, quite a few of them saying that they were rattled early this morning and woken up that way by the quake at 7 o'clock. Others saying, what are you talking about? We didn't hear anything. Here's what they're telling us.
I was feeding my son and all of a sudden just felt this huge jolt, and it felt kind of like someone hit the brakes in a car, and we sprinted into the doorway expecting more, and then nothing came.
I was already kind of somewhat awake, and just, yeah, I just felt a quick jolt, and it was like, oh, earthquake, and then just kind of went back to bed.
You know, before my alarm came off, I felt just like, it was like a vibrating bed situation, just woke me right up.
Mayor Lurie saying this morning that I promised to make the safety of San Franciscans my first priority as mayor, and I am keeping that promise today with this morning's earthquake. I ordered city government into action immediately this morning, and our first responders have been out across the city ensuring the safety of our residents. Now, we did hear from folks who say, maybe I shouldn't be in the ocean. One guy who was out there surfing earlier this morning because he's worried about what might happen because of the fact that the epicenter is about 3 miles off the coast. But as you can see, still a lot of folks in the water out here having a good time on this beautiful Friday morning. And again, we didn't feel anything, even though the fire department did mention that they were on a group chat, and that the folks in the chat who were closer here to Ocean Beach were the ones who seemed to feel more of the earthquake, I should say, compared to other parts of the city, guys. Back to you.